Hi guys. I just want to share a story time about a big portion of my life. Um, it's just been like heavy on my spirit to share this, and it's a very sensitive and deep story that I myself am also still trying to process, because when things like this happen to you in your life, it can be extremely surreal. And when you love someone, it becomes so difficult to even believe and accept that these things are actually happening in your life. Well, the reason why I've decided to share this is because it's just been heavy on my spirit, especially the past few days. And the fact that they've been consistently attacking me relentlessly. So, not just me, also attacking my children as well. So, it's as a mother, it's okay, you can do anything to me, right? But I rebuke it in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. There's nothing that they will do that will ever prosper. But you can try and throw anything at me, it's fine. But as soon as you include my children and you attack my children, that's where I draw the line. And I think it's like that with every mother. So it started in 2020. In 2020, at the beginning of 2020, I lost my mom, right? And I lost my mom in a very mysterious way. She suddenly fell sick, extremely sick. Okay, she was always kind of a sickly person, but that year, the way things happened, it was clear that it was a spiritual attack. And unfortunately, it took her life, right? We'll get that back to that later. Right, so that's where it started. And well, before that, I was always an extremely independent person, happy. I was single at the time, and I think I was around 28. I was 27 or 28, Kona Lab. So, but I was extremely, even though I just lost my mom, heartache, a lot was going on. Before we even lost our mom, a lot was going on. So, and unfortunately, it was like mainly spiritual attacks upon my family, which I'll get into at a later time. So I met this guy, right, later in 2020, towards the end of 2020. I met this guy, I think it was like towards the end of November, December, right? So he walked into my workplace, and I was working at a pharmacy at the time, right? I was about to go out on lunch, and I had forgotten something in the dispensary. So I quickly rushed out to the dispensary to get whatever I wanted to get, and then I was quickly going on lunch. So when I got to the dispensary, he walked in, and he was the only patient there, right? It was quiet. He was the only patient there. And I was the only person in the dispensary. So I was like, okay, let me just quickly assist this patient, and then I'll leave, right? Okay, I recognized him when he walked in because we went to the same school, right? So I was like, okay, I greeted him. We didn't have any previous relations because we went to the same school, but we didn't know each other like that. I just knew him by recognizing him, right? But him and my dad and his family were somehow like familiar with each other, but I didn't know them like that. So he asked my number in the process of me assisting him and whatever, and I was just like, okay, at the time, mind you, I had just received a lecture from one of my colleagues at the time that he was like, this is just a warning to younger girls as well. Do not allow anybody to ever put pressure on you, in terms of saying that you're getting old, you must get into a relationship and whatever and whatever. Saying that you must give people a chance and whatnot, because that's what happened to me. So my colleague was like, no, you're getting older. I see you're not entertaining any guys. You don't seem interested in anybody at all, even when they try. You should give someone a try. So I was just like, because I was getting closer to 30. So I was like, I started feeling the pressure. Like, okay, maybe he's right. Maybe the way that I'm not entertaining guys is a problem at my age. So when this guy walked in, I was just like, okay, let me just give him my number. Even though at the time I wanted to be friends. My intention was to be friends, right? I wanted to be friends because, there was just a previous story that I'd heard about him, but it wasn't that outlandish, It was just like normal stories that people tell about their encounters and stuff with the person. So, and it wasn't like a scary story or anything like that. So I was just like, okay, no, fine, we can be friends and whatever. So on the same day, he decided to come after work. He asked what time I was knocking off. He decided to give me a lift from work to home, right? Because I didn't have a car at the time. And so then I was like, okay, no, fine, cool, whatever. So, but I had made it clear that I was just looking for friendship at the time, right? So, long story short, he took me home, and that day we ended up chilling and talking, and we ended up talking for hours, right? We ended up talking for hours, and cool. He seemed like a chilled, nice guy. He seemed like a cool guy. Our stories seemed to have a bit of resemblance here and there. So I was like, okay, no, the next day it was the same thing. He also insisted on fetching me at work. And I was like, okay, no, fine. Then I won't have to take public transport. You can give me a lift. So this went on. It got to a point where he wanted to fetch me from work almost every day, right? And, because I was in a sensitive place, I just lost my mom. I was just not okay. I needed, the friends that I had all stayed far from the town where I stayed. And by the way, I'm from a town called Barberton. I'm from a small town called Barberton in Mpumalanga. So, and my friends were all far from where I stayed, because I had made, most of my friends were in varsity and whatnot, and I had finished varsity and I was back home, right, at the time, working. So it went on for months. He for a couple of months, or for a month or so, he would pick me up, drop me home, and then we started getting closer and closer, right? Because I was in an emotionally sensitive place. I just lost my mom. Somebody was there to listen and hear me out, and it seemed like our stories were similar. We had gone through similar things, and now I know that some of those things were actually, you would just listen to my story and probably just try and make it look like we went through similar things. But then anyway, that went on, and then we got to a place where we started dating, right? So cool, we're dating, everything is fine, everything is cool. We chill, we spend most of our times together. He would insist on seeing me almost every single day, right? And at the time, I didn't see it as a red flag, right? I didn't see it as a red flag. I just saw it as, oh, it's rare for a guy to want to see you every day and want to spend time with you every day. It must mean I'm the only person that he wants to be with and spend time with. When you're younger, you see things from a naive point of view. Because I was always very naive. I was always that good girl that grew up mostly indoors, didn't really have many friends, didn't drink, didn't do anything. So to me, when somebody wanted to pay attention to me, I was just like, oh, okay, no, he must really like me that much. So it continued, went on within a month, right? We met mid-November, December, in January, within, let me say, 2.5 months. I'm going to continue.